I know now, looking back through the other end of the telescope, that I was in the midst of a monumental change in our social hierarchy here in South Carolina. And I didn't realize where I was or what I was doing at the time and how important it was in the main scheme of life.
They were looking for people who were community-oriented and who might take some approval of the entry of the Urban League into the Columbia, South Carolina community. Why, I was one of those persons. And I readily agreed to associate myself with this venture.
In 1967, the Columbia Urban League was itself trying to turn a small opportunity into a great enterprise. Started by business leaders that year, not just black leaders, but black and white leaders working together, the Columbia Urban League aimed to close the disparity gap by providing economic opportunity.
I think about those who have come to us who've been unemployed, unskilled, and how the Urban League has provided training for them. I was at an event several weeks ago, and a person came to me and said, Mr. McLaughlin, 15 years ago, the Urban League gave me my first start.
The Urban League, unlike some other organizations, has always taken the position that a great deal can be done through negotiation, quiet but tough, of making sure that people were aware of the problems, of what some of the solutions could be, and making sure that those solutions were implemented.
In 1967, putting the wish for equality into action did take backbone. Now, providing the opportunity to achieve is the backbone, the very heart of the Columbia Urban League. Beginning with that small opportunity, look at what we do today. From youth programs and scholarships to legal services and job training, we're emphasizing achievement for people of every generation. Achievement not only in the workplace, but in the family.
Yes, achievement does matter. And if people will come together and will work together to see each other as human beings of worth, to lay down the barriers of racism, classism, sexism, prejudices, and reach out together and hold hands as brothers and sisters and walk together and work together, we can achieve things that we've not achieved in tens and hundreds of years, and then we'll all be able to say, yes, achievement does matter, and equality can be served for all of humanity.
Tonight, we're here to celebrate what a community can do when we remove the barriers to equal opportunity and simultaneously demand the best. Because in 35 years together in Columbia, we've seen that it takes more than opportunity to close the disparity gap. It takes aiming for a goal and then working hard to surpass it. Tonight, we thank you for your hard work and honor your achievements, because achievement matters. Tonight's event, the Columbia Urban League's 35th Annual Equal Opportunity Day Dinner, provides us with an opportunity to recognize the contributions and efforts of a number of individuals who play a vital part of the Columbia Urban League's ongoing efforts. These awards are the focus of our attention this evening, but our heartfelt appreciation is extended to everyone who supports our vital work throughout the community. The John H. Whiteman Award, given in honor of Charter Board member and educator John H. Whiteman, recognizes the accomplishments of a current or former board member for extraordinary efforts in promoting the mission of the Columbia Urban League. Tonight, this award is presented to D. Bradley Warthen, editorial page editor for the state newspaper.
I wanted to be the editorial page editor of the state newspaper. It's the state's largest newspaper. It's in the capital city. And that is a position from which you can have a real impact, positive impact upon South Carolina. I often state to people that our mission is helping the community to have constructive conversations about the critical issues that face us all. And that's what we try to do. We do it through expressing our own opinion. We do it through all the other opinions that we have on the page, letters to the editor. guest columns and things like that. That's our mission, is to be the public forum where people can come together and work out the problems and the challenges that we face. My colleagues and I sit down around a table, and we're a group of people who have very different opinions about many things. But what we do is we work together to find consensus. We don't work by majority rule. You know, if we've got a difference of opinion about something, and of course we don't have the luxury of saying, okay, we'll just push that aside. If it's a critical issue facing our community, we need to come up with a position on it because we've got to say something about it, or else we won't play our role of fostering that community conversation. That's what we try to do on the Urban League too, when we're faced with a difficult problem. And if I've been able to contribute to that, it's because that's what I do in my work every day. If you ask anybody what's the most important issue in South Carolina, they say education. But what does that mean? What's the most important aspect of the education issue? To me and to my colleagues on the editorial board at the state, it is inequity. It is the fact that you can get an excellent education if you live in the suburbs of Columbia or Charleston or Greenville. But if you live in the rural parts of Marion County, Williamsburg County, Marlborough County, and many other places around our state, you simply don't have that opportunity. The schools that are available to you are not as good because those communities lack the resources necessary to hire the best teachers, to build the best facilities, and to make the opportunity fully available to the children in those communities.
The Virgil C. Summer Award, given in honor of former board member and past SCANA chairman Virgil C. Summer, recognizes the exemplary achievements and commitment to social and civic responsibility of an individual from the business community. Tonight, this award is being presented to Winfred S. Green, personnel manager for Michelin Tire Corporation.
Michelin has plants in Greenville, Columbia, and actually several in the upstate. And my wife at one time worked with the Urban League in Greenville. And when I worked in Greenville with Michelin, we had an opportunity to become involved in the community. And once I had an opportunity to start working in personnel, I actually worked not as an employee, but worked in terms of volunteering time with the Greenville Urban League. Michelin had a presence in the Columbia area. I wanted to have more involvement. And it was through that contact that the Urban League, through JT, extended me an opportunity to become a member of the board of the Urban League. And since then, we've had the opportunity to be involved in some Urban League programs and sponsor some Urban League programs through Michelin. Because Michelin is very much interested in education, youth development, and also involvement in the community. He suggested that this would be a program that is basically a recognition of excellence on the part of high school students in the Midlands area in both athletics, academics, as well as recognition in terms of the technical school systems. And he afforded us an opportunity to actually be the primary sponsor of that program. The Urban League has done a tremendous job, in my opinion, in terms of building partnerships towards impacting the gap. The partnerships that they build are not only with local, state government, but there's also a huge partnership that they build in terms of the business side. I think that the effectiveness of that partnership has had a tremendous impact on minimizing that gap. It continues to have a tremendous impact in terms of improving upon the disparity.
The Lincoln C. Jenkins Jr. Award, given in honor of Charter Board member, civil rights attorney, and municipal court judge Lincoln C. Jenkins Jr., recognizes a dynamic community leader. Tonight, this award is being presented to Tracy Young Cooper, 2001 South Carolina Teacher of the Year.
I think what's necessary to motivate someone to succeed is having faith in them and giving them the tools in order to be successful. I truly believe it's much more effective to teach someone how to fish than to feed them for a day. And that's what organizations like the Urban League are about, self-empowerment. And when you empower someone and give them the confidence to excel, then they're going to feel more comfortable about stepping out there and facing challenges. And I'm just so very fortunate to have been selected as the symbol of these outstanding teachers, because when I see my face on that truck, I never want anyone to think it's all about me. It's not. I may be the symbol, but I am representing 45,000 of the best instructional practitioners here in Columbia, and I applaud them. They're in those classrooms every single day, making a difference and touching lives. In many pockets across the state, we are still having a hard time with understanding and addressing the issue that we do have a savage achievement gap. Now that I've gone on record, I'll say, what can we do to improve it? And that's that we have to work across lines, across district lines, party lines. We've got to have broad-based support for making sure that we narrow that gap, because children are at the basis of this. And it's the children, there's an old African proverb, it's the children who suffer when the elephants fight. Okay? And we've got to make sure that we work together to make sure that we bridge those gaps and make sure that all children no child is left behind. So that's why I believe my new role in coming back to Johnson, working with induction teachers and providing professional development opportunities for veteran teachers, is really helping the state with trying to retain teachers. I love what I do. I look forward to getting up every Monday morning, greeting the children, and literally touching the future every single day. I do believe that I'm making somehow a significant contribution to the world, and that's not just talk. I strongly believe that. And I do believe that education is one of the central focuses of our society, because we all understand that if we don't have an educated workforce and educated children and adults, we won't make it. We simply won't.
The Whitney M. Young Jr. Award, given in honor of the National Urban League's past president, Whitney M. Young Jr., recognizes the accomplishments of an individual who has been a trailblazer in promoting equal opportunity. Tonight, this award is being presented to Harold A. White, retired Senior Associate Athletics Director for the University of South Carolina.
My high school coach, Charles Bolden Sr., often talked about it was not the size of the dog, but the fight in the dog. And I remember that just like he said it yesterday afternoon. And I've remembered it throughout my life, because I think it does depict what it's about. Again, as we talked about circumstances, we talk about adversity and so forth, it's not that who have the most, but the ones who is willing to fight the hardest. Coming from a background of mine in which my parents had sixth grade education, there was not a lot that they could do to help me, all my brothers and my sister, once we got to a certain point, from an academic educational point, helping with the algebra and so forth and so on. But what they did do, in particular my mom again, was to provide us with an environment and with the encouragement to want to do well. We had no excuse not to do well. If it meant working 3 jobs on Mom's part, Mom worked 3 jobs. If it meant walking from one place to another, she did it in the name of those children that she wanted to have a better life than which she had. I have a little saying in my office that says, there comes a time in every athlete's life when the laurel wreath withers and the applause belongs to others. And usually I would talk to them and I would point out, put 3 little dots there and say there's a life after that. And that's what we're about here. If you're with a group of youngsters who are doing well academically, you're not going to be the only one not doing well academically. So part of my job too was to try to help make sure that environment was there. So when you look back over a career, you look back at this stage in your life, and when you started out only hoping that you could be to someone what Coach Bolden was to you, and tell that little boy or girl that in spite of your circumstances, you could be successful, and to have people to come into your life and say to you at this stage that in all kind of ways. Coach, you made a difference. Yeah, that's powerful.
The Community Service Award recognizes individuals, corporations, organizations, or institutions that have made outstanding and noteworthy contributions to the community. Tonight, this award is being presented to Martha L. Haywood and Durham E. Carter.
I decided to do this because I had a lot of idle time, and I thought that the best way to utilize that time was to do something to help someone else.
Before I met Miss Haywood, I was Willette. I was a little girl who just ran through the neighborhood, didn't have nothing to do. I mean, I was bored at the time. Then when I met Miss Haywood, I was about to graduate from middle school and go to high school.
She was very shy. She wouldn't look you in the face. She was timid. Her grandmother came that day also to the Urban League, and she did most of the talking. And she also told me, she said, "Would you please help my grandchild?" And I told her, "Yes, Miss Bates, I will." And from that day on, you know, I just felt that she was part of me. Her confidence level really increased to the highest. Her grade point average went from below average to above average and exceeding. She has received awards in ROTC, and she also helps out with the Urban League, the summer youth working programs.
I made decisions on what I want to do and what I want to be in life. And my goal hasn't changed since I'm out of high school now, going to college. I still want to be a registered nurse in the Air Force. I want to be a volunteer for the Urban League. She has been like a mother to me. She's always stayed on my back. Willette, you did this. Willette, you did that. Willette, you need to do this. Willette, you need to do that. And I thank her for that, because she has always been there for me, and she still is there for me. And she's a good mentor, role model. I think other people would appreciate her too.
I visited the San Diego Urban League, and I met the president and CEO out there. So when I introduced myself, I said, "I'm Martha Haywood. I'm a volunteer from Columbia, South Carolina Urban League." So he introduced me as the vice president that day in the meeting, and I was like, "Oh, no, sir, no, I'm just a volunteer." He said, "No, today you are the vice president. You are volunteering. That's what we need more of, community service people like you." That made me feel pretty good, though. And I think, you know, like everyone should at least try to help one person along the way.
In 1967, the community began to depreciate tremendously. During this time, we were in an area that was very well-kept, middle-class, mixture of black and white, and the houses were well-kept, and then the houses started to depreciate as the older people started leaving the neighborhood, and we had what you would call absentee landlord. And as it depreciated, we saw the crime growing into the neighborhoods. So I just want to make a difference, that it can be as it once was, and try to prepare our young people to strive to make it as it was when I was their age coming up. We have young people who are coming into the neighborhood after school for the tutorial program with the help of the University of South Carolina and Benedict College in Allen, where students come to volunteer to help the students to improve themselves academically. So we just are proud of the ones that are getting involved to make the neighborhood what it is, and that is a better place, a safe place to live in the community. These young people are the future generation of our community. And if we don't prepare them today, they will not be in a position to take over later on in the community to be good leaders in the community. And we are trying to prepare them now to replace people like myself and others in the community to be able to take on the responsibility of making the community a better place.
The President's Citation is awarded to a Columbia Urban League employee who has demonstrated outstanding leadership and commitment to the mission of the Urban League. Tonight, this award is being presented to Eddie L. Moore.
Becoming the person I am today, I owe much due to my parents, my family. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Coming from Allendale, South Carolina, it took just that. My parents guided me definitely with respect and manners. My community of Allendale, South Carolina geared me towards being strong, being dedicated, setting yourself for high goals. Joining the United States Marine Corps in '96 allowed me the opportunity to give back to my country. Started working with the Columbia Urban League in 1999. I experienced the services of giving back to the community. Toys for Tots, the United States Marine Corps Reserve, we do a lot of things in the community. And as I started working with the Columbia Urban League, it gave me the extra feeling of belonging and giving back to my community as far as where I live. I got involved in the Youth Drug Prevention Program because I felt and saw that there was a need to prevent our kids from alcohol, tobacco, and other drug abuse. Violence was real high in the community. The Columbia Urban League started a program called Stop the Violence back in 1990. I believe in our youth are our future, and if I invest in my youth now, my future's promising because it's in the hands of those that I brought along the way.
I think when we look at equal opportunity, when we look at leveling the playing field, what we see is a gap. There ought to be a bridge, but there's a gap in essence. And we believe that if we're going to have equal opportunity, we need to recognize that there are disparities, and that gap needs to be closed. Our focus is on academic achievement because we believe that education is the great equalizer. Education transforms people.
The Urban League, just in so many ways, helps people to do that thing that other people say, why don't you do this? Why don't you pull yourself up? Well, the Urban League makes that possible. The Urban League gives that helping hand, and then the people that we help, they take it the rest of the way. They do it themselves. What the Urban League is about is opportunity.
Initially, my dream was not to become a teacher. It was to become a broadcast journalist. And after meeting Mr. McLaughlin and sharing my starry-eyed dreams as a little 6th grader or 8th grader at the time, he said, you know, we're going to support you in becoming an anchor here in Columbia. And I said, do you really think that can happen? He said, I know it can happen. And he had one of his staffers at the time, Miss Cynthia Pryor-Hardy, contact me and let me know about the opportunity with the Urban League's Job Summer program. I was employed by WRS-TV because the Urban League created that avenue and that opportunity for me.
We needed to make sure that those people who represented the so-called power structure of Columbia were aware of the Urban League and became a part of it, that they would understand the mission of the Urban League and would join in so that we could together move forward to make sure that this community was a community that provided for all of the underprivileged people who lived within this community.
A community without the Columbia Urban League would probably be a corporation without human services, without the human resources. Someone has to always be there for the people, and that's where the Urban League comes in at in this community.
In order for any of us to win, all of us must be winners. And I think what the Urban League has done is tried to find ways in which we can find those who may not be the most gifted, most talented, to find ways to be successful. And when we as a community help those, then of course we help ourselves and we all win.
For 35 years, we've worked to level the playing field so that more South Carolinians can succeed and achieve. We're grateful that we don't have to imagine a Columbia without the Urban League. And we can't imagine the Columbia Urban League without you. Thank you for helping us close the gap and for showing by your actions that achievement does matter.